And I think we're on. Looks like we're on. I think I'll get pinned here in a minute on my YouTube. Hey, look at that. We're on. So, hey everybody. We're not going to waste any time today because we have a special guest. We got Kurt Wenger. Am I getting your last name right?
Yeah, Wenger.
Wenger. I knew that. Gosh darn it. See, I screwed it up already.
You said it
good. Okay. All right, good. All right. But I'm Alex Sturgeon, your Hobbyplex manager and host of the show. And with me, as always,
Will Brenton.
And we're here to talk. We got another guest. I'm really excited. Will has been just kicking butt getting the guests in line.
Yeah, Kurt was hard to get. He had to squeeze us into his busy schedule here and made it work. So
yeah, we did have to bump it back a few weeks for racing.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. The carpet race. You went to the carpet race in Vegas, right?
Yeah. I flew out. I'm based in Texas now. I flew out from Austin to Las Vegas, and Spencer was there, and Brent, and Cole Tollard, Rob Gillespie, Brent Signs, and Champlin is local there. So we had a pretty good crew. And then the new thing this year is we got the One Up Team Associated team with Joe Pillars and all of his One Up guys. A bunch of Pacific Northwest guys were there. So there's a lot of Team Associated repping on the carpet.
It looked like there was a very strong Associated presence.
For show.
That track was a little bit different this year too. To me, it looked more, I don't know, open. Like the first year they had that thing, it felt tighter and there was way more jumps. And this one didn't seem.
This one was pretty flowing. It felt like about the right size for the track. I mean, the fast four-wheel drive guys were doing low 15s and then high 15s in two-wheel drive. I was in the high 16 and low 17s. I actually made my car faster and went slower. Classic maneuver there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty good size. I've never been there before, so I don't have a lot of frame of reference. I have run on carpet before, and so that was my first time running on the black carpet, which was really interesting. It was a lot cleaner and less messy. Like the other stuff I've run on is like the old gray Ozite, which has a lot higher fuzz factor.
Yes.
Than this, and I
thought
it was really grippy and good, and I was pumped on it. The tire life was good, like the J Concept spec tires. I know the pro guys were only running them 2 or 3 times. I mean, you could run them 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and they're still pretty good.
That was one of the things that we noticed a lot. We got black carpet almost 2 years ago now, and before that we were running carpet off-road on the gray with slicks. We didn't allow any pins. And then when we went to the black carpet, the slicks didn't work as well, and we kind of transitioned over to the regular carpet pin tires at that point. And Will and I, the first year that we ran on black, I mean, Will's was a master of tire management. He just dominated everybody. I'd always burn mine too early, use them up, and then be slower.
Yeah, the trick is to run have a set of tires for you. I always started the main with a set of tires that had about 3 minutes of running on it, and then that's the set that I would run for the first 2 qualifiers the next week, and then for the main, in the break, I'd break in a new set of tires. I'd run those for the main, and I'd just cycle them that way, and it was like perfect amount of tire wear. So, because then you could get a couple of practice runs and then run your 2 heats. And then you had a fresh set for the main.
Yeah.
That's just what I did.
Yeah. And then the stock guys can definitely get their tires on our track. Because our track's like maybe half the size, I guess, total of the Vegas track. And so it's not as fast. You're not, even though the lap times you were saying that the pros were doing, I mean, usually our lap times are in the 13s and 14s. Just because of how tight
when
and
you're
twisted.
Going that fast, the size, the track getting bigger doesn't add that much to the lap time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well,
yeah, we went to. I ran at that track in Minnesota, Thunder Road.
Oh yeah.
That was the biggest carpet track I'd ever driven on. It was like you almost had time to adjust your hat going down the straightaway. But it was just like your car was like a missile. Like that was the fastest I think I've ever driven a 2-wheel or a 4-wheel down that back straightaway. But
yeah, sometimes the extra speed on the straightaway gets you in trouble in the infield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Definitely.
That was the most challenging thing I thought about carpet was I had to slow down so much for the jumps. I was like, I don't want my car too fast because I'm just going to screw up and over jump everything. And I gain way more on the lap times doing the jumps good than going faster on the straightaway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Downsiding all the jumps is so critical for carpet.
Especially on our track because it's so tight.
Yeah.
You can't over jump at all.
Yeah, that Vegas one, you come down the back straightaway, loop around, and then you have the jump in front of the driver's stand. And I would literally have to like coast and then like barely touch the trigger for the jump. Otherwise, I was overshooting it by 4 feet. It was like a nightmare.
Yeah.
A little bit. I was like, I cannot go any slower. Like I'm almost coasting over it.
So,
yeah.
So I want to introduce you. So I think I know enough about you. You at one point you worked full time at Associated, am I right?
Yes,
okay.
For sure.
For a long time.
I worked there for about 10 years roughly.
Okay.
And a lot of people know Associated originally, the RC10, the RC was for Roger Curtis, who was the original founder of the company. And he was an engineer with Douglas Aircraft and did military stuff. And so he was the original designer. And then he and Gene Husting partnered up and they did the RC10 and got everything going. And Roger, the person after that to do the design was when he brought Cliff on to do research and development. And so that lasted all the way through the 90s with the B2 and the B3 and the TC3. And then the other person in the industry still around, you guys would know, is Torrance de Guzman started out. And he was the first person to work with Cliff. And they worked on the Nitro TC3.
I remember being at M&M Hobbies right before the TC3 was released to the public, and he had one there to show people at the 99 Mod Nats. And I was in awe of that car. That
thing blew up.
Yeah.
And it kind of, the touring car, the whole thing of the rise and fall touring car was really interesting, but that right product at the right time, it was a home run. And so then when we were starting the new electric off-road project is when I started in 2002. And so that was the first thing. And Torrance and I were the designers, and Cliff was moving into a different role, kind of managing everything. And I think that was one of the last projects that he actually designed something on and actually like drew it and did the nuts and bolts. But then we kind of took over. So I started doing two-wheel drive development and went from there to learning about everything. But I was kind of had my beginnings in electric. So I had studied engineering and went to Texas A&M, and I raced a little bit in between. When I was going to school a few times a year, I'd race the regionals and race a few times in Houston. But I started out doing electric off-road development and testing there, and I kind of started building my base of knowledge and stuff. So I worked from there on all the electric projects, the T4, and then we worked on, at the time there wasn't, there was the GT, and then I worked on the GT2 project, and then later the SC10 project when we launched that, and all the other versions. And sorry,
that's okay.
I have already instructed that she cannot. My daughter's here, and she cannot talk to me or make noise unless there's blood or fire or a spider that has to be this big.
Right.
So it has to be a really big spider.
Or scorpions. Do you guys have scorpions down there in Austin?
No.
Oh, that's good.
No. I'm in a small town outside of Austin. But anyways, yeah, I worked on all those kind of little car projects, and then I started learning about 8 scale when we did the RC8 and doing all that testing, which was kind of a crash course. And throughout all that, I really I raced touring car, and I did pretty well at that. I made the Reedy Race Open Class A main, and I raced with Brent, and we did some on-road development, and Barry Baker worked there at the time, so that was kind of all in the late 2000s, and then I worked there all the way up through like the 2011 Worlds, and then in 2012, the beginning of 2012, I left and launched with Avid. We launched their whole product and accessory line because Avid was just a bearing company. They were based out of Texas, old friend of mine. So we launched that, and I did that with David from Avid for a few years, and then we broke up and launched my own brand. So I kind of been doing the shell accessories since 2014, and then this past year I talked with Cliff and Sean Ireland, and Associated was going through some changes and needed somebody else, specialist, to work on the 10 scale electric. So I kind of joined the team part-time, and we started doing the B74.1 design and development. And since then, I've been working with the new engineer at Associated. His name's Billy Hayden. He's from the Northeast Pennsylvania kind of areas, and so he's been great, and we've been doing the T6.2, SC6.2, all the 4-wheel drive stuff, and then the new 2-wheel drives, working on those projects. So
sweet.
That's the full recap.
That's pretty cool.
So you kind of got into, so Will has this really awesome list of questions, and
I'm on it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of trying to work through it.
Yeah.
No, that's why I send you a list of stuff so you can kind of, you aren't like blindsided by something, So
you based from what I heard, you actually weren't really into RC cars until college?
No, I was.
Okay.
I'm a long timer.
Okay. All right.
My first car was kind of in the 1980s, like RC10 craze. So I had the gold tub RC10. I saved up my money mowing lawns. I saved up about $250, I think. And I didn't have enough money for the kit with ball bearings and electronic speed control. So I got the Bushing RC10 kit. I still remember it was number 6010 was the kit part number. That's how they distinguished them. I got an Airtronics XL2P radio.
Yep.
Came with 2 servos. And I got a ProTech charger with a 15-minute dial, which ProTech, not related to the A-Main ProTech.
Yeah.
It was like Pro TECH.
Yep.
They're gone now, but ProTech charger. To me,
I know what you meant. I've been around long enough. I know exactly what charger you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that one. You said you had to cycle it through 2 times, you know. That was back when like SCEs and SCRs were just coming out. Before that, it was just like regular batteries. And they were like
SCEs were those the ones where you could only use them like once a day?
Those were the yellow ones. Yeah, they were higher capacity, and they were lower usage. So yeah, it was totally like, you got to buy 4 of these, because if you need to run 4 times, you need 4 batteries, because you could only use them once.
I've never
light bulbs and discharge them to nothing, or they'll have a memory.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
when I started
in that era.
Yeah, when I started, everything was nickel metal hydride still and brush motors. Yeah, so I never had to do any of that. But I do have a brand new, never driven RC10. It's built, but it's never been driven.
Was it the old era or the
No,
it's an A stamp.
It's the original one. Here, I'll grab it.
Nice. Mine's gone.
I've had a couple of them. I tend to get them, and then I look on my shelf and go, oh, there's like $300 sitting there.
This one was a display car at Hobbytown. So it was
nice.
So it was all like tricked out with, it has like a Tekin speed control, and like all the like kind of the newer old school stuff. But yeah, like it's never hit the track before.
Did it have the 3-piece wheels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was the old one with the 3-piece wheels, and I had the original Gangsta 3-piece spoked wheels with the big knobs.
Oh, really?
And the small front tires, smaller diameter front tires, like the
really?
original
like,
Jam. Yeah.
Yeah, they're smaller than that
those
one.
Those are like 3 or 4 years deep into my racing. Maybe
really?
Yeah. I had those at one time.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I've been doing it for a while.
Okay.
And slowly upgraded everything to where it was like nothing was original in the car but the chassis kind of a thing. And so
I walked into my hobby shop here in Omaha, Bel Air Hobbies. It was one of the longer lasting hobby stores in Omaha, with full intent on getting an RC10 back in the 80s. And the guy that was there actually talked my mom out of it, and she ended up buying me a Tamiya Falcon instead.
Oh.
Which is a complete 180 from what I actually wanted.
I know. You're just like, I hate when salespeople talk you out. That's in my adult years. I'm like, I'm buying what I came in here to buy.
Yeah.
No matter what.
It's crazy because I tend to think how different my experience starting out would have been if I would have just got the car I wanted instead of getting something that wasn't even raceable, you know, because I wanted to race.
And then you end up circling back and you end up with the RC10 anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
there's probably like some like seller's incentive, like the salesman got like an extra $5 for every one of those ones he sold. Something really stupid.
I remember. Well, I know the guy. He still races every once in a while. He's an on-road 8-scale on-road guy nowadays because he's up there in age. And he back then it was sorry, it's the truth. Back then though, it was what he was explaining to my mom was that it was gonna be too complicated. Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
But see, I've built a Falcon recently, and I'm like, holy shit! Like this is just as complicated as an RC10 would have been. What in the world was this guy talking about?
Yeah, well, RC10. I mean, the mechanical wiring up your own speed control and everything was like not exactly easy to figure out.
Yeah, that's true.
And they were like, oh, by the way, here's your servo mounts. You need to drill them. I think, like super old school, like you had to drill the servo mounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the original manual with like the black and white photos. I mean, it's come a long ways.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to get started now. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you know, when you're designing a car, you know what it's like to be somebody new trying to put together something like that. And like, you definitely appreciate the nuances that we have today. Like,
oh yeah. And I mean, you don't even understand, like the turnbuckle to the servo was like bent wire. It wasn't even a turnbuckle with ball cups to hook your servo and steering up.
Yeah.
And you like didn't get a servo horn in the kit.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's why a lot of the ones that you see used nowadays, the servos are all in a whole bunch of different locations, and they all use like the plastic servo horn that came with the servos.
Yeah,
that explains a lot of that. I was wondering about
like,
that.
I started racing when you remember X mods from Radio Shack. Like you remember that
a little bit.
I started racing those. They had this like once a month thing at a mall. And I won like a regionals for racing. So I actually like started tiny and kept getting like bigger cars. But my first associated car was an RC18T. And we raced those in the back of the store at the hobby town that I ended up working at when I was in high school. But
those were fun. That was a whole thing for a while. I know our guy, Josh Anderson, an associate, he was like the 18 scale master. He and Tony went out and raced. And they would go to RC Madness and race 18 scale nationals once a year and trick out their cars.
Yeah, my friend Richard and I, we were like wanted to go to that race so bad. We're like, we need to go there. We'd just totally win. Like, you know what? You know how it is. But
yeah,
I'm typing.
That was like the start of like online videos and that whole thing. Because that would have been like what 2004, 2005.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, the engineer. Side note, one of the main engineers for the 18th scale project, Lucas Widener, he is one of the main engineers at Joe Gibbs Racing NASCAR.
Oh
now.
my gosh!
He
really?
Associated, yeah.
That's awesome.
He worked in. He was from Colorado, like near Colorado. He went to Colorado State and worked for a racing team based out there, and then he worked for Associated for a couple years. And his main thing was he did the 18th scale project, and then he went off and did a whole bunch of other stuff. And he's been at Joe Gibbs Racing for about 10 plus years now, out in Mooresville, North Carolina. So I go visit him when I go through there.
That's pretty cool.
How did you get the coach moniker?
Oh yeah, that was funny because we were at SoCal a lot, and it started. I had this T-shirt that I liked because my cars were always like, my original cars were actually fluorescent red with black, and then I changed it when yellow wheels came out. I was on it, and so I changed my whole scheme to the fluorescent green and yellow base, so I could see it. 'Cause the lighting wasn't that great, and I got to rock the yellow wheels, and so I always had green. So I got this green T-shirt that I'd wear to the track. It said "Coach" on the back because I got it at a resale shop. It was from some like sports and recreation place that I got when I lived up in the Seattle area. So I had this shirt and I kept wearing it. And then I was always helping the guys and working and wrenching. And literally that's when I kind of met, was when I moved down there, and we would be testing. And I mean, he was at his peak, in 2002 when we came. And so Ryan Cavallari was this new up and coming kid. And we were all at SoCal Raceway, and those guys would literally be at the track, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, Brian was there every day.
Yeah.
He would literally pull up and unload his stuff and sit at the same table at between 12 and 12:30 every day. And we'd always drive over because they'd open at 12, and we'd be testing two-wheel drive stuff, and we'd bring our car for the day and whatever, trying, and come on down and be running laps. And then usually we'd stay, and we'd race on Wednesdays, and I'd usually race Wednesday and Friday, and then Saturday was just like a play day, and then they'd have a Sunday race, which I would do sometimes. But yeah, I had that shirt, and then it just a lot of the guys saw it, and then I'd come in and they'd see my shirt and they'd be like, "Coach," and yelling out, and then it just kind of stuck from there. And it fit pretty good. So that's how long it's been. It's been like 17 years now, and it's a pretty good name. And then other people that didn't know it, they were like, "Oh, I just figured they were calling you Coach because you're just out helping everybody." And
yeah,
that's what I always thought.
But it kind of fit, and that all started with my shirt, which I'm sure I still have it. It's kind of fallen apart, been washed a million times, but still got it. I put a picture of it. You can go search through my Instagram and see a picture of the back. If you want to go to the Shell Racing Instagram, you can scroll through there. There's a picture of the Coach T-shirt.
So, Shell. So you said about 2012, right? I think that's about how long we've been carrying this stuff at the Plex, actually.
Yeah, you guys have had it for a while. So yeah, I launched the brand. We ended up the Avid product line. I mean, the way that the industry was and the amount of what you got in the kit, it was still kind of, the cars were going through a transition of you getting a completely plastic car with everything on the really low end and wanting to buy a lot of accessories. So yeah, we launched the Avid line, and it blew up and did really well. And then after we broke up, I wanted to keep doing that, and there was a lot of leg room in, and I think one of the first things that came out was kind of like the B5 series.
Yeah.
And that car, you could, you didn't get a ton in the box as far as super trick stuff. So yeah, we launched that line and launched the new brand, and figuring out a name and everything was pretty hard. But we wanted to find something that had a unique name, and I liked the logo and the way everything looked, and we could find a web footprint, and it wasn't going to it was going to be easy to find on the web, so we ended up with Shell, which is easy to say. You say it like Shell Oil or whatever, but a lot of people still say Shelly.
Shelly.
So I'm cool with it, but eventually people figure out.
Yeah.
But it still happens. It's only been 7 years.
Oh yeah. Oh, we have a whole running gag on here about stuff called wrong names.
Yeah.
Yep.
Last week I heard Aroma Typhoon.
Ooh, Aroma.
Which is that's the first time I've heard Aroma replace Arma.
That's
but
interesting.
Yeah, but it was I heard Aroma Typhoon. I was like,
yeah, the logos kind of could get a little confusing if you were looking at it at a glance.
Yeah,
and you hadn't really seen it. So, what else do you want to talk about? You want to talk about my favorite class?
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. Yep.
Yeah. It's funny how you brought that up.
Yeah, funny how you brought that up.
Yeah, what is your all-time favorite class?
I'm kind of torn. I was thinking about this because
I bet it's touring car.
I bet it's gas truck.
Favorite class for running and testing, I think, is probably two-wheel drive. My favorite that I probably do the best at in racing is probably four-wheel drive. I usually finish higher in four-wheel drive. Like, I made the open class A main at Reedy Race in four-wheel drive, and like my highest finish at the Worlds was in four-wheel drive. So I'm kind of partial to that. I really like it. And so when 13.5 four-wheel drive came out and we could actually club race it all the time, I was hooked. I was racing four-wheel drive all the time.
That's usually our biggest class. Usually.
It's really fun. The new cars are durable. But I think two-wheel drive is probably my favorite class on the whole for how challenging it is and the competition level. But it's like 1A and 1B as far as favorites. I think two-wheel drive, because of the prestige, it just has a little more of an edge, so it would be the 1A, and then four-wheel drive electric would be 1B. But they're both fun. Yeah. And then touring car, I'll just say pre-tire warmers.
Before it got stupid?
Before it got stupid in the TC3 days was really fun. I'm probably the closest to being good at touring car, which also kind of goes to like, that's why although I don't race it very much, I'll probably be way better at carpet off-road than dirt because of my driving and the way I drive. I do better the more traction there is and the more work that the car can do. And like, I'm not one I tend to, when I make my car too fast or I overdrive, I usually go slower and make mistakes. So the more I can kind of like stay in my wheelhouse, I can go faster.
Yeah.
So the more, I know everyone goes faster when there's more traction, but the gap between me and Ryan Cavallari gets smaller the more traction there is. I catch up to him, and the more it relies on the driver, he blows me away.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to put it.
I crash more on carpet off road. I get slower. But you get me to an old school outdoor track where I can use IFMAR pins, I'm right at home.
Yeah.
You know?
I know. I was like, dude, we were running the old X patterns, Jam and J. I mean, there's people they don't even know about like Jam and J step pins. And that there was the whole Jam and J tire line with the step pins. Those were like solid gold for a while. And then the flat fuzzies, the flat fuzzies
Pro 92?
came out. What?
Pro 92s, right? Aren't those flat fuzzies?
I don't remember the part number.
I think that's what they are. I might be wrong.
Yeah, they had the first was the fuzzy, which was like,
yeah,
And then the flat fuzzies came out, and it was like, that was the tire for a long
I had to
time.
beg my dad at this trophy race I was at to go in and spend $12 on a new pair of tires. And he was like, "What's wrong with those tires?" And I'm like, "Well, they're fuzzies, but they're worn down. I need new fuzzies." And he's like, "Those look just like those." And I'm like, "No, they're not. Trust me. I need new tires.
The edges are worn off. We need to win."
Do you still have a set of those, the Jam and J tires?
No, only in my memories.
Yeah.
No. That'd been cool to post the pics of them.
I'm sure we can find some pictures somewhere.
Yeah. The internet's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But those are probably really hard to come by. Yeah. Probably even more hard to come by than the original X patterns.
I have 3 sets of brand new X patterns on my cars that I'm never taking off my shelf. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I still have a bunch of IFMAR pins and big shots and some IFMAR studs for 2-wheel.
There you go.
Yeah. Just for fun.
Yeah, it was a cool era.
Loose dirt.
So many different things. We've been through all the
Jumps
eras
weren't
of the
very big.
motors and the batteries, and
yeah.
I was thinking about it. I think the biggest game changers, other than the fact of like probably M2 and M3 tires coming out, was a big game changer. And then the 2 battery revolutions, the first one to running nickel metal hydride, wasn't that much of a game changer, but it made the cost to race, like you just needed 1 battery pack for a car. I remember the first time we had these nickel metals, and I would go to a race, and Adam Drake was there, and he just brought 1 battery and left it in his car and just charged it for every run. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, we can do that now!" And then I don't need, which I love because you're soldering your battery in every run.
Yeah.
That made life a little bit better, but the brushless and lipo revolution was a huge game changer. Especially
it kind of brought electric back. Kind of brought electric back.
Yeah. So I got to do all the brushless testing. I remember we ran the first Novak system before it was even released. We ran Bob's system. He invited us to come down and give him some feedback, and it was actually really good. And then we had the original LRP system, and then I think right around the worlds, like when we went to Japan in 2007 or 2000, what was that? I think it was 2007. That was like the last worlds where the brushless was just starting to get as good as the brushed. And I know Brent and I ran brushless at that race, and we ran the new centered rotors with some new revamped LRP software, and it was finally as good where I didn't feel like it was a handicap on the power band and the drivability. And I think pretty soon after that, I know that those races were won with brushed motors, with the checkpoint guys Jared and Hayato both won, and then shortly after that it was pretty much full on brushless as soon as they got the centered rotors and you didn't have to deal with heat fading.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, we did a bunch of testing and development with, the big thing is like the cars were so heavy. Like the cars we were racing were like 1,650 grams. And then when you switch the battery pack, I think they might have even been 1,700 grams. And then switching the battery pack to a long lipo, the car got so much lighter, we ended up having to change a lot of the setups and settings to make it softer. So that was a cool era. And then I think the other biggest kind of game changer was the big bore shocks era and mid motor. So
yeah,
those were the biggest things I thought that really changed the game for the car design and gave it a lot more capability and flexibility. So
it's fun to take out a B4 every once in a while. I have a couple of them, and I've got one that actually runs and with a like a Novak, I can't remember, was it 4200 or whatever it was, 4300 system. It's fun to take those out every once in a while and go, wow, this still handles really good.
It's still balanced. It maybe can't go over the jumps the same way or land the big jumps with the same thing, but the setup's balanced and you put good tires on it. They're still really fun.
Yeah. Well,
I've got a bunch of B4s saved. I saved all the cars. Anything that I raced at the Worlds or a big race, I saved. So I've got a few B44s, the cars that I raced in Japan, the cars I raced in Italy, the cars that I raced at the Worlds in Florida. And I got all that stuff saved. So I got a pretty good collection.
Yeah, the B44.1 was probably my favorite four wheel. Like I loved that thing. Like and maybe it's just because it had so many less adjustments. It just felt like you could just sit it down and drive it. But
yeah,
I always felt like that car was really good.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed it a lot. Sorry, I'm shifting around, messing up the frame.
Yeah, you're fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, the B44, that project, I mean, that was, you could talk to Jason and Brad, did the original design. They told Cliff, and they were like, we want to make it our car. They decided, like, right before the race. They're like, we want to put together our own car to run at the race at the Worlds. So Brad Rilst and Jason hammered out the design and figured out what to do and got parts made. And I'll tell you, if we have time at the end, I'll tell you the other story about Jason at the Worlds. That was really funny, searching for parts for that thing. But we, he did that, and then the BJ4 project really took off, and so part of the original agreement was kind of anything we learn on that project we can use on an associated version, and so then. Once we went through and raced and kind of switched to the saddle pack cars, and it was time for Associated to make our version, we worked with Jason as a consultant, and so he and I worked together on the design of all the production plastic pieces and taking their car, which was, using TC3 gearbox cases that they had to get them custom machined and cut down to fit the chassis, and taking that and making it into something workable for production and doing all the improvements. So making the different front kick-up plate and the front bulkhead. And so I worked on all that on the gearboxes and the front tower mount and the wing mounts and all that whole system, taking all that into production. So.
Wow. Did you ever have a job outside the RC industry?
I tried a few different things. When I was in school, I was lucky enough to do a bunch of different co-ops and summers and stuff. So I worked for a summer for an oil drilling company, and I got to see that in Houston. I went and moved to Detroit and went racing up there. That's where I met Joe Pillars for the first time. I just showed up at the club race at his track, and we were battling. And he was working at the Phantom guys are up there, and I guess they were right by the only. I had to drive like 2 hours to find a dirt track, but I didn't have anything else to do. I wanted to go race my cars. Yeah, I lived up in Detroit. I got to work at Ford Motor Company for a little while, and see what that was like. And then right after school, I moved to Seattle, and I worked at Boeing in an equipment group. So I did that, but I'm kind of spoiled now. I that's kind of why I end up like having the freedom to have my own brand and do that other stuff is working in a big corporation or a hierarchy or whatever, where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. It's not as fun as being able to, have so much control over the products and stuff, and being able to work in the RC industry and doing what we love and having so much of a hand in everything.
Yeah.
It's way more cool. So I'm kind of spoiled now. I can't go back.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, yeah, I've done it. I might do other stuff. Later on, I haven't ruled anything out, but I like what I'm doing now and kind of found my happy place.
Yeah.
Will,
let's see.
Do you want
to talk about the B6.3?
Yeah. Now? Let's lead into this, baby.
I don't know how we're doing on time.
Oh, we're fine. We usually go hour to 20 minutes. It kind of just depends.
Okay. Yeah,
anything longer than that, I get
6.3.
yelled at. So
Okay, I know we got to eat dinner later too.
right.
So yeah, we did the B6.3, and I think it's a really cool project. We started doing testing and development for it last year, and we didn't really know what we wanted to do. We knew a few key things like, all right, this is a headache, this is a complaint, we want to fix it. We knew we wanted to fix the steering link and the ball cups that connect the steering servo to the bell cranks, because those are made out of a more stretchy and rubbery material. They're made in the same mold as the shock end and the sway bar links. And the abuse that they get from the steering, they just stretch out and oval out really fast. So we knew we wanted to do some stuff like that. And we knew the slipper clutch. We wanted to put an improved clutch in there. And so we kind of started doing the slipper development with the four-wheel drive, which was the very first thing I started working on with the guys. And using the new LCF material, it opened up a lot of doors to change the pad size and the spring. And so we had kind of come up with that and the new locking system. So we carried the slipper clutch stuff over, and we were able to test it on two-wheel drive. And the new B6.3, the carpet version, has the same spring and the same pads as the four-wheel drive, which gives you a lot more torque capacity and drive without, it can still slip, but it can transmit power under load better. And so that's what is really an advantage for carpet. Whereas the dirt one is the standard. It's a 19 millimeter hole. The four-wheel drive's 11, so it's a lot more surface area, and it needs a new spring because whenever you increase the surface area, you add drag, but you also change the pressure and the amount of, so you need a lot more force on the big pads. So we came up with the new spring design, and then we started kind of just trying stuff, and because we had learned so much about, the original generation changed from the 65 millimeter to the 67 drive shafts. Mm-hmm. And then we had changed from the 6.2, offered the super long 69 drive shafts. We just did some more digging there, and we came up with what we thought was the best combination is the rear end. So we made the new C and D blocks that are wider, and we used the 73 arm, the shorter arm, and that's my code signal that there's some secondary noise. And then, so we got the 73 arms, but then we were able to use the longest drive shafts, the 69 drive shafts, and still make it to where it fits the layback and lay down gearboxes. So we kind of were just like, let's just see how it goes. And we tried a few different settings on it, and we found some stuff, which is kind of the kit setups for the new cars. And on the whole, it's just all around way more predictable. And as far as like when the car breaks loose in the turn, the drive shafts make a really big difference. Being able to go to the longer drive shaft and being able to transmit power and keep rolling without kind of stiffening up, which is really important for like the mid-motor car designs. I think it's no secret that the mid-motor cars and the longer drive shafts kind of go together. So
yeah,
the new rear end package, I would say, is the most important thing that makes a big difference. And so if somebody's really penny pinching, you don't really need to get the new shock tower, although you won't get the fine hole adjustments. But the C and D blocks, the 69 millimeter drive shafts, and the 73 arms, that's the biggest game changer that makes the car feel a lot better on the rear end traction. And then the big thing that we started testing was the front end. We started doing some testing on the flex, and we're like, let's just test the chassis flex. So we started mounting the servo through the chassis plate, and so the two side rails are like disconnected all the way back, but in the front, when the servo's connected across them, it's got a cross member, so they can't move side to side when the chassis twists. So we started testing with that, and that really transformed the car. Kind of turn in and lean and stay and load the front end. Whereas before, I think the best way to describe it is the car with the more rigid front end configuration and kind of leans into the turn, and then it hits a point where the front kind of stiffens up and doesn't keep turning. And so you feel like the car kind of winds up and then stops, and you don't get the front end grip all the way through the turn. So
Yeah.
that was a big deal. So you've seen a lot of the guys started modifying the chassis and trying it, and drilling servo manuals. And so we tried it on carpet. The Champlins tried it, and Brent and the guys tried it, and Aiden Horn ran it. And so the first time we were running it was at like OCRC for the Surf City Classic, and Aiden did really well with it.
How about that kid, huh?
Yeah, he's putting in the work.
Yeah,
he's getting up there. A new up and comer to the podium. So he's done really well the last year, going to a new level with his program. So that's been cool to see. And I've known his dad for a long time, and he's been really good to work with. So we roomed together at Surf City.
Nice.
And yeah, those are the hugest things that I would say are really big. A game changer was the chassis flex. And then the other thing that obviously now comes in the box, which you kind of had to cobble together before, is we molded a new chassis brace rods, and you get all the parts in the box, a turnbuckle, the rod ends and the rods and the fasteners to run that setup where you can connect the gearbox to there. And so that gives it, the rear end, a lot more torsional flex. And my best description is that you lose a little bit of turn in, but then the rear leans and follows the front through the turns, and you don't necessarily get the rear end stalling out and not rotating. So I think the lower and medium grip dirt, it really, really works good. And I've even run it on carpet, and it's kind of my go-to baseline.
So it's more of like it's almost more of a preference thing, like.
Yeah, it really changes how the rear end feels, how fast you want to rotate, and how much turn in you like.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of give up a little bit of initial turn into the corner, and you get a lot more of like mid to exit rotation when you run the turnbuckle, versus if you run it rigid on the waterfall, you get more turn in, but the car kind of seems to stall out and be a little more rigid in the rear, and not as much weight transfer and twisting. So
does the new kit come with the medium pistons?
Yeah, that was another thing we started testing. Was the thin pistons kind of had some benefits, but they had some I guess a little bit of too many drawbacks that we weren't really using them that much. So we made the medium pistons.
I struggled with them when I tried them.
Yeah. So the medium, if you're running the same setup like a 1.6, 1.7, you do have to run oil. So like normally you might run with a thicker piston, you might run 30 weight in the rear, and you usually have to go up to like 35 weight. Like during the summer, we go up to 35 weight, like at Surf City, and but they tend to have a little more supple feel to them, and they're really good on dirt. So they those have already launched. I don't know if you guys have gotten them yet, but I think there was a press release and stuff. So they launched a little bit before the car, but they come in the box now.
Yep, I have those pistons. The other thing that I noticed that was coming in the new kit was the 4mm long eyelets, or like there's like the short, and then what we used to have is the long, and then the even longer.
So that's part of like the new suspension. The arms are all shifted out, so they're kind of farther away from the shock towers. And one of the things, we wanted to keep the shock tower to where if you do want to switch and run the longer arm setup in the old mounts, you can use the same shock tower. So the general rule of thumb is that if you had short eyelets on before, you need to go to long, and if you had long eyelets, you need to go to the +4s. because the arm is farther away as it moves out. So you need the extra 2 millimeters of length so that you can still get the same droop.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so that's the kind of general rule of thumb. So a lot of the guys were at the big races were running +2. So with the new rear end, they'll need the +4s, and that way you can get the same droop at the wheel. So we're kind of almost running at when you run on slicks and you're running like axle height 2, you don't get as much wheel travel relative to the chassis because it's the wheels sitting up higher relative to the arms. So keep adding more and more droop.
Spencer Rifkin says, "Yo, yo, yo." He's on right now.
Oh, what up? Yeah, he was just trying to FaceTime call me right before I got on. So I'll catch you later, Spencer.
Hey, Spencer.
Spencer's been great to work with. I was really glad when I met him and then got to know him, and we've been doing lots of 8-scale testing and development and 10th scale. And I mean, the team we have with Spencer and Dustin Evans is great. I met those guys. We went and raced at Trackside last year, and then kind of been doing all the races. And then Aiden Horn and Blake Champlin, and then Ronnie D, all the guys that we have on the associate team. Cole Tollard comes out for some of the events. They've all been great to work with. So it's been super fun. Get to know the newer generation of guys a little bit more. We're rocking it.
You said that you guys started on the 0.3 project. Was that a year ago? About a year ago?
Yeah, kind of after everything kind of has a lead time. So we finished 4-wheel drive development, and we knew we wanted to do the truck 6.2s. So we did a lot of testing, and I know a lot of people are wondering, like the T6.2, we built up this Gullwing setup package and figured out the shock towers and everything for that with Gullwing front arms. And we kind of tested like Gullwing rear end with the regular front end and Gullwing front. And then we kind of tested all the different combinations, and Brent was driving a lot of that. And it kind of worked out that when you have the Gullwing, it kind of works better on all 4 corners on the truck, and it kind of controls the pitching because the trucks are relatively short wheelbase to how long they are, and they pitch a lot. And so having the shocks more vertical stops the truck from pitching and ends up feeling a lot better, and it doesn't lean as much. And then when we tested all that on the short course, it was kind of the opposite, because short course is a really narrow vehicle that's got a really long wheelbase. And the Gullwing, the Gullwing rear end had like no traction because there's already not a lot of, it's a narrower tire and the truck is a longer wheelbase. And so we tried all of those, and we kind of came to the same conclusion that if you were going to put Gullwings on it, you have to put Gullwings front and rear. But overall, the package for short course wasn't as good. So that's why the SC 6.2 doesn't have the Gullwing suspension on it. If it worked better, we would have done it, but we spent some time with it, and it's kind of the nature of that vehicle, the wheelbase and the width. It just doesn't work as good.
Do you see?
Yeah, we're like, who wants to have something new on it when it's loose and you have no traction? We're like, I already tried it. It's not better, guys. I'm doing you a favor. You're gonna do donuts if we sell it this way.
Do you have any insight on the sales of short course at Associated? Because around here it's pretty dead, and so I was actually surprised.
It's weird, yeah.
I was surprised. Yeah,
it's like, the truck programs are great because there's so many shared parts that it's not a whole lot of extra investment to offer it. You have to make molds for the arms and stuff, but it's not going to break the bank. And you're like, I don't know where these are all going, but
yeah,
they're going out the door, and it's enough to make it worth our while. And, a lot of people, when they see, they're coming out with a new kit or something, they don't realize that, like, we have to make batches of kits. We don't just say, people want 5, whip up 5. Like, you have to order, you're like, you got to get 500 or thousands, you know, they're like, nobody wants to do, you know, nobody will get out of bed for less than 500 of something, you know?
Yeah.
To actually make it. So, but you know, you're like, okay, we can sell a whole batch of them. Let's make it. It makes money and people are buying them. They're going out the door. And then, you know, part of like the B6.3 coming out, it's like, well, we're going to run out of B6.2s and we got to make, you know, thousands more of something. So why not incorporate all of these ideas and stuff that we found to be better and have them come in the box if we're going to make new stuff versus we could make more B6.2s and then sell a bunch of option parts, and then you're not getting all this other cool stuff. And you're like, well, you got to buy a B6.2, and then you got to get the new C and D they released, and then you got to. And it's like, it's way better to just have it all come in the box than have people have to cobble together an updated car.
Yeah.
So, I know a lot of people are, I don't know. As I get older, the fact of an RC car is $350. It's not really that much. Like, this is a pretty affordable hobby compared to everything else out there.
Yeah.
I have
the fact that you buy a new one and
I have a B2 box over there, and the price on it was $340.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't changed a lot.
You're like, and now I got aluminum chassis and aluminum suspension mounts and threaded shocks in the box.
Yeah, and it's a lot more durable.
Yeah, the cars are so much more durable now.
Well, and that
it's crazy.
You kind of answered my part of my question. I was going to ask next was, the frequency of new cars coming out now on the off-road side, is a lot more frequent than what we experienced for a little while in the, say, 2000s, right? But I think part of that was because in the 2000s, off-road in general was kind of slow compared to touring car, or even as 8 scale was getting bigger. Am I right there? I mean, that's kind of what I felt in the hobby shop.
Relatively, but it was all like, I mean, production methods have changed, and I mean, back when it was all made in the it wasn't made in the building, but it was made in California. And
yeah, that's true.
In Associated, they had like bins of front A-arms, and then they're like, well, we need to sell some more kits. Let's just go grab front A-arms and package up another small batch of kits to sell, you know?
Yeah.
Versus now it's kind of like everything's on a bigger scale and there's more money and time invested, and you're doing bigger batches of stuff, and you can't make onesie twosies or make them as needed. So there's the production things, and then and the rate of development, and it's just kind of a different era, and you got to realize that time is gone.
Yeah.
And it's actually, you're like, just show them a picture of your all plastic B2 for $350 and then be like, do you want to go back to this?
Yeah. But what you said too made a lot of sense to me. You're like, well, we have to order this many kits next. Do we order this many kits and hope they all sell, or do we incorporate a new design and come out with something new since we have to order all this stuff anyways? To me, that makes total sense.
Yeah. And I mean, I know with COVID, a lot of people, you know, there's people that'll be vocal, but you can end up updating your car or not. And I think the price is really affordable, and it's one of the most affordable hobbies. I think RC is a lot of bang for your buck, and you can go overboard and overspend on anything. And it's the same people that overspend on RC. If they were into guns, they'd overspend on guns, or they'd overspend on, and people, you know.
Yeah.
If you can do it, you can do good and put in the work and have fun and with any hobby. And there's going to be a percentage of people that, like in racing, they want to try to buy speed, and then, or whatever, or buy accuracy if it's shooting, or buy times if you're bike, and then eventually it's really whoever puts in the work and gets better at it.
Yeah.
Is going to be the best.
And you know, the B6.2 has been out for almost a year now. Like, I mean, really, you know, it's kind of time for a new car anyway. You know, if you bought one at the release, you've run that thing for a year. Like,
it's worn out.
Well,
yeah, I buy new cars every year, anyways.
Yeah, like it's pretty standard. I think to have a new car every year.
So so many parts carry over. I don't think it's. There might be a few complainers, but I don't think it's going to be a huge shock to the system. And on the whole, it's good.
Complainers. Try running a dirt track, and then you just all that stuff. All that stuff just you ignore most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions you have? It is almost dinner time here, so I'm almost at my time limit, but you guys can fire a few more at me.
Yeah, you covered it. When's the mini truggy coming?
What? Mini truggy? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Does that mean like the 10th scale truggy?
Yeah, that's my jam.
With truck wheels?
Yeah, that's my jam.
Don't hold your breath, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You need to put together a full market study and send it in, and then it might get thought about.
I know. Every time I see Brent, I'm like, hey, dude, check this out. You need to get one of these.
And then you're like, well, should we guys work on drag racing cars?
Yeah.
Or mini truggies? And then you're like, oh, okay. Buy a mini truggy.
That was actually his response.
A lot more popular.
When I met him or not met him, but when I saw him at South Carolina this fall, we were talking about that, and he was like, "What do you think? Do you think drag racing or do you think mini trucking?" And I was like, "Oof." From a hobby store standpoint, drag racing, you know.
Yeah.
We are a money making operation.
That's right.
And if you think you can launch your own mini truggy, it is a business. Even if it's for fun, it's the most fun for the most number of people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. So I wouldn't hold my breath on the mini truggy world. But all the other core stuff's here to say. Drag racing has been big. The scale, the element program has been really cool to watch.
I love my element.
The other engineers that... most people that have been in the industry a while know that Thad Garner works on the projects, and then Aaron Lane works on the element, the scale projects over at Associated. So it's in really good hands, and obviously you've got your DR10 there. I mean, that thing came out pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. There's a brand new. It's super windy out today, so I didn't get to drive it earlier. But I think as I leave here, the wind will be calm enough. There's a brand new parking lot outside. That's the whole reason why I brought it. I was going to drive it. This will be my first time driving it. I'm excited.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the only other genre of RC that really interests me is the drag racing. Just because it's scale appearing and, anybody can win at any time. I think that just seems like more of having a good time with your buddies at the track.
Yeah. We were joking in Vegas. We got a call from Mayfield, and he's like, well, I went drag racing today. I got beat by a little girl and a guy in a wheelchair. It's like it's the equal playing field. The fact that I'm the world champion in off-road doesn't matter.
Yeah, people probably don't even know who he is at those events, a vast majority.
Dude, there's like 3 different families here, at least in Omaha, but that come into the store frequently. 3 different families. They don't know each other. They've never raced each other. And basically each family has spent tons of money on drag racing stuff, and they just go back and forth betting each other money out in parking lots. And it's like 3 whole different families, and they've never even seen each other, but they all do the same thing. Like there's
in between each other. Bragging rights.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
RC is cool. Get more people into it and get them to see it.
All right. Well,
that's all I have.
Other than
me too. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Taking the time, and
we're gonna switch it out, and then we'll use this to do a pivot break. You want to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, we got to go. Okay. Never mind. I'm getting the hey, we got to go. So we're gonna go. So okay. Well, Kurt Wenger, thank you very much for coming on. This is a Hobbyplex show.
Sure.
We're gonna wrap up. Don't forget, this is always sponsored by Pivot Lending Group. Find it at pivotlending.com. And if you mention our show, you get 0.125 off your interest rate or $500 lender credit. Use it. My wife and I are using it right now. It's almost done. And we'll see you maybe I'm not sure if we're going to see you next week because I'm on vacation. So we'll talk about it. Anyways.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yep. Thanks,
guys.
Kurt.
Thanks for having